Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made this disco cactus, so let's get started. I'm going to be using a high density foam for this project, which I picked up from my local hardware store. And the first thing I did was cut some long pieces that I'll later glue up to create the base of the cactus. My plan is to stack 4 pieces of 1.5 inch foam together, glue them up into a column, and then carve it into a cylinder to shape the cactus. I knew I was going to need some added stability, so I traced a 2x4 which I'll bury into the center 2 pieces of foam. That way my cactus will have a support beam running through the middle that I can later screw onto a base so it doesn't tip over when I stand it up straight. Once I made room for the 2x4 in one piece, I used that as a template to trace onto my second piece and cut out that same shape. Now that I have everything cut, I'm going to show you how I'm going to assemble it. I'm going to take my end piece, my 2 support pieces, I'm going to throw my 2x4 in, and then bury it all together with that end piece. I gave myself a rough idea of what my cactus shape was going to be, and I knew that I wanted to add an arm. So after figuring out the height, I decided to sketch it out on a scrap piece of foam. This piece of foam has obviously seen better days, but I'm not going to worry about the score marks that are in it because once it's all glued up, I'm going to give it a hard coat so those will disappear. In other words, don't be afraid to reuse leftover material. For the arm, I ended up cutting 3 pieces of foam to stack, and once I had them stacked, I traced the width of where I would need them to attach into the main body of the cactus so I can glue them in later. So you can see that once I start the glue up, this cactus arm will kind of fit into that negative space. To stick this all together, I'm using Loctite gaps and cracks. Be sure to wear gloves and use a drop cloth when you're using this stuff because it sticks to everything, which is a good thing when it comes to foam, but not when it comes to your hands. The adhesive that I'm using expands as it dries, so to keep the layers in place, I'm using skewers and just poking them all the way through so nothing shifts as it dries. To attach the arm, I filled the hole with some adhesive and I went in and filled any cracks with some additional foam that will expand and stabilize the arm as it dries. For some added support, I just went around and wrapped everything with a little bit of blue tape. And this is what it looked like when it was dry. You can see it's starting to take the shape of a cactus, but the next step is to carve it down into shape, and for that I'm going to use a hot wire. I got mine from Amazon, which is linked in the description. I didn't get a ton of footage, but basically what I did was use my hot wire to shave down all the sharp corners to give myself a rough shape that I'll later use my rasp, also linked in my description, to shave down the cactus into its final shape. Definitely be sure to wear a respirator while you're working on this part of the project because the dust and the fumes are pretty nasty. And this is the final shape of the cactus that I was happy with. I'm not going to worry too much about this kind of texture right here because I'm going to go in with a hard coat and fill that in before I start putting the mirrored tiles on. Once I got back to my studio, I cut a base out of plywood so that I could stand this up to make it easier to work on. Once I had the base cut, I screwed it into the 2x4 that's running up the center of the cactus. Once I had it all set up and ready to go, it's time to hard coat. There are a bunch of different options for this, but I am using a mixture of joint compound and wood glue. And of course, it's always at the messiest part of any project that my dog just wants to play. I let the hard coat dry overnight, and then I hit it with a quick sand. I got these mirror tiles on Amazon, which I'll link in the description below. They come in sheets, but I cut them into strips so that it would be easier to apply them to the cactus. As you can imagine, this is a pretty tedious process, so I highly recommend binging whatever floats your boat on Netflix. I definitely wanted to add some flowers to my cactus, so I used gray Model Magic as a base and started rolling out the center part of my flowers. I'm planning on using HVAC ducting tape to make the petals, so I really just need something that I can later stick that to. To make the petals, I pulled out my aluminum tape and I basically stuck it to the table and then fold it over to stick to itself so that I can have a nice little piece of aluminum to work with. Once I had my petal shapes traced out, I went in and cut out the negative space. Whenever I'm making something that's based on a form found in nature, I always like to remind myself that it doesn't have to be perfect, because nothing in nature is ever really symmetrically perfect. I wanted to add a little extra bling to the center of my flower, so I put a layer of hot glue on the inside and then dipped it in this amazing glass glitter that I found. To attach the petals, I basically worked my way around the center by dragging my hot glue gun and then wrapping the petals that I cut around. Once I had them on there, I kind of bent them back to make them feel a little bit more lifelike and kept repeating the process. I cut one piece of additional tape to wrap around the base of the flower to hide the exposed clay. Once I had all my flowers made, I figured out where I wanted them, popped off a single tile, and used a skewer to shove them into the foam base of the cactus. And this is the final product. I think she's pretty cute. I just made this project for fun, so let me know what you think. As always, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. To support this channel, you can go ahead and subscribe and give me a couple of likes, and I'll see you next time.